About 10 years ago, there was a man who lived in a busy city. The city was always hot, especially during the summer. The sun shone brightly every day, making it feel very warm. The man didn't like the heat, and he didn't like the noise of the city either. It was always loud with cars, people, and the sound of machines. Sometimes the man dreamed about leaving the city. He wanted to go somewhere quiet, where the air was fresh and cool, and the world felt peaceful. He often thought about the countryside. In his mind, he imagined walking in the woods, hearing the birds sing, and seeing the green trees. He imagined the fresh air, the blue sky, and the calmness that came with being in nature. The man liked the idea of escaping the busy city life. He wanted to experience something different, something peaceful. So, one day, he decided to leave the city and drive into the countryside. He packed his small red car with a map and some food. He was excited for the adventure ahead. He wanted to find a quiet place where he could walk through the woods and enjoy the beauty of nature. He was happy to leave the city behind, even if it was just for a short while. He got into his car and started driving. The road was long, and he drove all through the night. The further he went, the quieter it became. There were no more busy streets or loud sounds. Instead, he saw wide fields and hills that seemed to go on forever. Everything felt calm and peaceful. The man enjoyed the drive. He didn't have a destination in mind, but he knew he wanted to explore the countryside. He felt free, happy, and excited. The car drove smoothly on the empty road, and the man looked out of the window at the stars above. It was a beautiful night, and the man felt like he could drive forever. As the sun began to rise, the sky turned bright blue. The morning sun was warm, and the air was fresh. The man smiled as he looked at the landscape. The fields were green, and the trees stood tall, full of life. It was exactly what he had been dreaming of. The countryside was even more beautiful than he had imagined. But then, something unexpected happened. As the man drove along, his car suddenly stopped. He pressed the gas pedal, but the car didn't move. He looked at the dashboard and saw that the petrol gauge was empty. "Oh no," he thought, "I'm out of petrol." The man was surprised and a little worried. He had not expected this to happen. The man looked at the map, hoping to find a nearby town. He wanted to find a gas station so he could buy some petrol. But when he looked at the map, he realized that he was not near any town. He was far from the city, and there was no one around. The man felt lost. He had no idea where to go or what to do. His car had stopped, and he had no petrol to continue his journey. He sighed and decided to walk. There was no other choice. He thought that he would walk along the road and try to find help in the nearest town. But where was the town? He didn't know. The road seemed empty, and there were no cars or people in sight. The man felt a little nervous, but he kept walking, hoping he would find something soon. As he walked, he noticed something unusual. A girl was walking down the road towards him. She was holding flowers in her hand, and her long black hair shone in the sunlight. She wore a simple dress that flowed in the breeze, and she looked very peaceful. The man stopped for a moment, surprised by her beauty. She looked like she belonged in the countryside, a part of the nature around her. The man, feeling a bit unsure, spoke to her. "Hello," he said. "I'm lost. Can you help me? My car is broken down, and I need some petrol." The girl looked at him with wide, blue eyes. She seemed a little afraid at first, but then she smiled softly. "I don't know what petrol is," she said, "but if you want, I can take you to my village. Maybe someone there can help you." The man was surprised, but he felt relieved. The girl's smile made him feel calm. "Thank you," he said. "I would really appreciate that." The girl nodded and began to walk. The man followed her, feeling a sense of hope. As they walked together, the man looked around and saw the beauty of the countryside. The sun was warm, and the air was fresh. The birds were singing in the trees, and the man felt peaceful. It was quiet, just like he had imagined. The girl, whose name was Mary, walked ahead of him, leading the way to her village. The man felt that he had found something special in this place. Even though the man was lost, he didn't feel scared anymore. The peaceful surroundings, the fresh air, and the girl's kindness made him feel safe. He walked with Mary, excited to see her village and hoping to find some help. But he still didn't know what to expect. Where would the village be? Would he find the petrol he needed? Only time would tell. Mary led the way as they walked together along the road. The man followed her, still feeling surprised, but also curious about where she would take him. The countryside was beautiful, and the man enjoyed the fresh air and peaceful surroundings. He had never experienced anything like this before. The trees were tall, and the fields were full of flowers. It felt like they were walking through a dream. As they walked, the man started to notice how quiet everything was. There were no cars, no loud sounds, just the soft rustling of leaves in the trees and the occasional bird singing in the distance. The road was narrow, and the only thing the man could see were the fields on either side of them. He felt calm, but also a little unsure of where they were going. Mary didn't speak much as they walked. She seemed to be in her own thoughts, but she occasionally smiled at the man, which made him feel a little more at ease. The man wanted to ask her questions about the village, but he didn't want to seem rude. He was still thinking about how strange it was that the village wasn't on the map. It made him wonder if he was in some kind of special place, a place that didn't follow the usual rules of the world. They walked for a long time, and the man started to feel a little tired. His feet were sore, but he didn't mind. He was so caught up in the beauty of the countryside that he didn't notice how far they had gone. As they walked, he kept thinking about Mary. She seemed so kind and calm. There was something special about her, something he couldn't explain. Finally, after what felt like hours, they arrived at a small village. The man looked around, surprised. The village was very different from any place he had ever seen. The houses were small and old, built with black and white walls. They looked like houses from a long time ago. There were no tall buildings or busy streets, just little houses and quiet paths. The man noticed that there were animals everywhere. Some cows were grazing in the fields, and chickens were running around near the houses. It was so quiet, and everything seemed peaceful. The village felt like a place that was untouched by time. "This is my village," Mary said with a smile. "Come with me. I will take you to my house." The man followed her through the village. As they walked, he saw that everything was simple. The houses were small and had little gardens outside. There was no sign of modern technology. The village seemed to be stuck in the past, but in a good way. It was as if time had stopped here, and everything had remained the same for years. Mary's house was one of the smallest in the village, but it looked warm and welcoming. The man followed her inside, and as soon as he stepped in, he noticed how clean and simple everything was. There was a fire burning in the middle of the room, and the smell of something cooking filled the air. The man's stomach growled a little, and he realized how hungry he was. Mary smiled when she saw him notice the food. "We cook our meals over the fire," Mary explained. "We don't use a stove like most people." The man was surprised, but didn't say anything. He was used to seeing kitchens with stoves and ovens, but this was different. It was old-fashioned, but it felt right for this place. The house was small but comfortable. There was a table with simple wooden chairs, and the walls were made of stone. It felt like a place where people could live simply and happily. Mary introduced him to her parents, who were sitting by the fire. They looked kind and friendly. Her father was an older man, with a long white beard, and her mother had a warm smile. They didn't speak much, but they welcomed him into their home with open arms. The man felt like he was in a different world, a world that was far from the busy city life he knew. It felt like a safe and peaceful place, where people lived without the hurry and noise of modern life. After a while, Mary's father offered the man a drink. It was a dark brown liquid, and the man wasn't sure what it was, but he took a sip. It was very strong, and he could taste the bitterness. It was unlike any drink he had ever had before, but he smiled and thanked them. Mary's parents didn't seem to understand what petrol was. When the man mentioned it, they looked confused. "Petrol?" her father asked. "What is that?" The man realized that they didn't use cars in the village. Instead, they used horses. "We travel by horses," Mary's father explained. "They are slow, but they are good." The man was a little surprised. He had never met anyone who didn't use cars. Horses are slow, he thought. Why don't they have cars like everyone else? But he didn't ask. He didn't want to sound rude. Instead, he smiled and listened as Mary's parents talked. They seemed happy with their simple life, and the man couldn't help but feel a little envious of their peaceful way of living. The day passed quickly, and soon it was time for dinner. The man ate with Mary and her parents, enjoying the simple meal they had prepared. The food was fresh, and everything tasted natural, like it came straight from the earth. The man felt full and content, and he realized that he hadn't felt this at peace in a long time. It was as if the village and its people had a way of calming him down, making him forget about the busy world he had left behind. Later, after dinner, Mary and the man went outside into the garden. The air was cool, and the sky was full of stars. It was a perfect evening. The man looked around at the peaceful village, feeling grateful for the kindness of Mary and her family. Little did he know that this peaceful village held many secrets, and his life was about to change forever. As the evening came, the man began to feel more comfortable in the village. He had spent the day with Mary and her family, enjoying their company and the simple life they led. Everything felt peaceful, and he was happy to have found such a calm place. However, as the night grew darker, he noticed a change in Mary's mood. She became quieter, and her smile was no longer as bright as before. The man sensed that something was wrong. They were sitting outside in the garden, looking at the stars. The man spoke to Mary, asking if everything was okay. He could tell that something was bothering her. Mary looked at him with sad eyes and, after a moment of silence, spoke in a soft voice. "You have to leave," she said. The man was surprised. "Leave? But why?" he asked, not understanding what she meant. Mary looked down at the ground, her hands folding together. "You can't stay here," she said quietly. "You have to leave before morning." The man was confused and worried. He had felt a connection to Mary, and he didn't want to leave. "What do you mean? Why do I have to leave?" he asked again, his voice full of concern. Mary looked up at him, her face serious. "It's dangerous to stay here," she said. "You must go, please. You can't stay." The man didn't understand. Everything felt safe and peaceful. Why would it be dangerous? He wanted to stay with Mary. He didn't want to leave her, not after everything they had shared. But Mary's eyes were filled with sadness, and her voice was firm. She was serious. "I love you, Mary," the man said. "I don't want to leave you. I'll come back tomorrow with petrol. I promise." Mary shook her head slowly. "You don't understand," she said. "I can't explain, but you have to go. If you don't leave now, you will never be able to leave." The man felt a deep sadness in his heart. He didn't want to leave Mary, but something in her words made him feel like he had no choice. He stood up and walked over to her, gently taking her hand. "I'll come back for you," he said softly. "I won't forget you, and I will come back." Mary didn't say anything in reply, but the look in her eyes told him that she understood. She stepped back slowly, still looking at him with a sad expression. "Goodbye," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The man felt a heavy weight in his chest. He didn't want to leave, but he knew that he had to. He turned away from her, walking slowly towards the road. It felt like every step was harder than the last. He kept looking back, hoping that Mary would call him to stay, but she remained standing in the garden, watching him leave. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. The night was dark and quiet as the man walked away from the village. He felt tired, both physically and emotionally. He was still confused about what Mary had said, but he couldn't ignore the fact that she had asked him to leave. He couldn't understand why, but he trusted her, even though it hurt. The road ahead seemed long and endless. He walked for hours, feeling exhausted, but determined to find a town and get petrol. The man kept thinking about Mary, about the village, and about the strange feeling he had when she asked him to leave. What did she mean? What was so dangerous? And why did she have to say goodbye? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he reached a small town. He went to a gas station and found some petrol. As he filled up his car, he asked the man at the station about the village where he had been. The man looked at him strangely and asked, "What village?" The man was surprised. He described the village to the station attendant, telling him about the old houses, the animals, and the people he had met. But the station attendant just stared at him, looking puzzled. "There's no village like that," the man said slowly. "There was a village there once, but it's gone now. It burned down many years ago. There were stories about it, strange stories, but that village doesn't exist anymore." The man was shocked. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had just been there. He had met Mary and her family. The village had been real, but now it was gone. "How did it happen?" the man asked, his voice shaking. "It was a long time ago," the man at the station replied. "There was a fire. The village was destroyed. Everybody died. There are no people or houses left. It was all a long time ago." The man couldn't believe it. How could the village be gone? He remembered the houses, the animals, and the food they had shared. It all felt so real, but now it seemed like it had never existed at all. "Are you sure?" the man asked. "I was there. I saw the village. I saw the people." The man at the station just looked at him with a sad expression. "There are stories," he said slowly. "They say the village appears every 10 years, but only for one day, then it disappears again. It's like it's trapped in time, only showing up for a brief moment." The man's heart sank. It was starting to make sense now. Mary had told him to leave before morning. She had known that the village would disappear. And now he understood why. "I don't understand," the man whispered. "I saw the village. I met Mary. I promised her I would come back." The station attendant looked at him with a knowing look. "The village is gone," he said softly. "It only appears once every 10 years. You have to wait for it to come back." The man walked away, his mind spinning. He couldn't believe it. He had left Mary behind, not understanding the danger. But now he knew that he had to wait. The village would come back, and when it did, he would return to find Mary again. The man made a promise to himself that night. He would wait. He would come back, and this time he would not leave until he was with Mary forever. As time passed, the man continued to wait. He did not forget Mary or the mysterious village. Every year, he thought about the day he had spent there, the peaceful moments he shared with Mary, and the promise he had made to return. He knew that the village would come back, but he had no idea when. Yet, he held on to the hope that one day, the village would appear again, and he would find Mary waiting for him. The man realized that life was sometimes unpredictable and full of mysteries. He had learned that time could be both a friend and a challenge. When the village had disappeared, he felt heartbroken and lost. But through this experience, he discovered the importance of patience and the power of promises. He understood that waiting wasn't always easy, but it was necessary for finding something truly special. The love he felt for Mary was deep, and he was willing to wait as long as it took to be with her again. This journey taught him more than just about love. It taught him about perseverance, hope, and the value of following through on commitments. Sometimes, in life, we make promises that seem impossible to keep. But if we stay patient and keep our hope alive, we may find that those promises lead to the greatest rewards. The man's story shows us that even in moments of sadness and confusion, there is always a chance for something wonderful to happen if we are willing to wait and trust in the process. Now, let's take a moment to reflect on the lesson from this story. Life may bring challenges, and we may face moments of uncertainty or disappointment. However, the key is to never lose hope. Even when things are tough, we can grow stronger and more determined by staying focused on our goals. Just like the man, we should be patient and hold on to our promises, trusting that everything will come together in the end. Whether it's love, career, or personal goals, patience and persistence are essential to achieving success. I hope this story has inspired you to keep going, no matter what challenges you may face. By listening to this story, you've worked hard to improve your English listening and comprehension skills. Congratulations on completing it. You've taken an important step toward becoming better at understanding English. Now, here's a small quiz question for you. Question: what did the man promise to Mary? He promised to stay with her forever. B. He promised to return to the village when it appeared again. Please leave your answer in the comments, either or B. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories and English learning content. Your support helps us continue making free, quality content for you. If you enjoy this content, consider making a small donation to help us cover costs and keep creating videos to help you learn. We appreciate your support, and we're excited to continue this journey with you.